Well, I don't really know what else to say, except for that really sucked. Psychos and sickos unite for another edition of the PHNX Suns post-game show presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHNX365 when you sign up and find out why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. The Boston Celtics treated the Phoenix Suns like LeBron James would treat Stephen A. Smith in a boxing match, and they just beat the living crap out of them, 132-102. At least I could put a smile on your face, Stephen. How are you doing?
I mean, that was tough.
It was bad, of course. That's Stephen.
Bad. That was also that's twofold because the LeBron and Stephen A. thing was bad too.
It's all bad all around.
All bad, yes. Correct.
That's Steven. I'm Eric. Noah's behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. Of course, the most important people. Everybody in the chat. Melissa, Weil. Sorry for completely butchering that. I very much apologize. Pablo, Reach Dog, Chunky, That Dude, Judas, Lucas. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us.
I think the emoji choice from Melissa is very accurate.
Yeah, the spinny eye emoji. Listen,
that's tough.
We really know how to pick a watch-along game. That's for sure. Because, of course, we did our normal pregame show, and then we did a watch-along all right here on PHNX Sports. And it got so bad, Steven, that we just started naming the most underrated 2K players of all time.
Off the top of the dome.
Best Ball is Life mixtapes. What was your favorite name that we said? Because screw this game.
From the Ball is Life or 2K?
Either. What was like the name that made you go, ooh?
I mean, I'm going to be biased and say it was my choice. I said Spencer Hawes.
Spencer Hawes is a good pull. Spencer Hawes is a good pull.
That's crazy.
Okay, well, before we get too far down that line, 132-102, I think it's safe to say that the Boston Celtics proved that they were on a different tier of team than the Phoenix Suns tonight, Steven, which in a vacuum isn't surprising, but given how this team's playing, the 4-game win streak, what was on the line tonight, and how high vibes were, to get to a point where it was blowout city from the end of the second quarter on was disappointing.
Yeah, it left a whole lot more to be desired. Even if didn't really truly think the Suns were going like win by double digits or anything crazy like that. Still thought even if they lost this game, it would be a game that entered the clutch, or they lost by like maybe 7 or 8 points. Not to the extent of, was it 34? At least the Celtics were up by 34 at one point. Didn't really have that in the cards for this game, but here we are.
Well, let's talk about how we got there, because it was close for a little bit, but Boston was being Boston. No Jason Tatum, still bombing away from deep, shooting a ton of threes and making a ton of threes. It felt like in the first couple of minutes, Steven, that this game was going to be over, but the Suns battled back. What was it about their process, their approach, whether it was coaching, whether it was execution, that just didn't mesh well against this specific opponent? Because we know the Celtics are good, but it's also their style of play that killed the Suns, not just the talent.
Their style of play can be daunting, but you come into a game against the Boston Celtics, you know that you have to be sharp, taking away three-point attempts from them. And if they are getting up three-point attempts, you have to be getting impactful and effective contests. And how many wide-open three-point shot after wide-open three-point shot after offensive rebound into another wide-open three-point shot scenarios did we watch within the first 5 minutes of the game? That's a tone that even if you are able to start or make a comeback to get back even or get close to even with, there's almost like you almost can't make up for that, because now the starting group, the best lineup for the team, has their rhythm going. All 5 starters for the Celtics knocked down a 3 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
In the first quarter. And if I remember correctly, I think all 5 of them knocked down a 3 before like the halfway mark of the first quarter on top of that. So like that's a tone that you just can't make up for, even if you can get close to that on the scoreboard, because when the reserves come in, they're picking up off of all of the energy that the starters already set a tone with.
Well, and especially a team like Boston that's not one of these good teams that gets up and rests on their laurels. Like they go out and they look for blood every single night. And if they see a little bit, they're like a shark. They're jumping right on you, even without Jason Tatum. They are the definition of a well-oiled machine. On defense, on offense, they have a clear identity. All these things that we've said the Phoenix Suns don't have, and they showed flashes of over the last 4 games, the Boston Celtics personify to the max. It's why they're the reigning NBA champions. And listen, there is no shame in losing to Boston. I know that when you're in the middle of this play-in race, you're sandwiched by Dallas and Sacramento by a half a game. I believe now you're tied with Dallas after this. Every loss stings, and you've dug yourself in a position where every loss stings. But losing to the Celtics in a vacuum is not the worst thing in the world, but it's how it happened that was so deflating. It wasn't just, hey, Boston was the better team in the end. It was, hey, the Suns got exposed. And I understand starting Nick Richards. I know Gerald put it out there, and we said it in our pregame show. I'll see if I can pull it up really quick. But they had a really good net rating and plus minus that starting lineup did in the minutes that they played. Here it is. Plus 27.6 net rating over 4 games together so far this season. Outscored opponents by 29 points in 48 minutes. So I don't mind Nick Richards starting, but it was pretty clear immediately that you needed somebody like Oso Ighodaro type defender out there. And personally, Steven, I would have tapped into Oso a little bit earlier. I don't know if it would have changed this game, but not the best game from Nick.
It was not. But I can't put it all on Nick, because to start the game, how well were the players on the perimeter containing the ball? And we talked about time and time again how he's miscasted as the culprit for defensive lapses and issues. Now, he had his own handful that were off his own merit and a lack of sharpness to the game plan that I identified during our live stream. But a lot of times he has to rotate off of his man to help because other players can't stay in front of the basketball. And against a team that has 5-out spacing across multiple lineup iterations, whether he's guarding Al Horford or he's guarding Kristaps Porzingis, if he has to leave either one of those two to help over because somebody else can't contain the basketball, and with the spacing templates of the Celtics, that next defender is 4 to 5 steps away. And the way they move the ball, it gets to where it needs to get to in an advantage as well as it does against any other team in the league. You can't be right. If you have to always compensate for someone else not being able to do their job, your defense is going to crumble, and there's no semblance of a defensive shell at that point.
Yeah, and I also think that, you know, I've hated on Mike Budenholzer a ton. I've given him praise over the last couple of days. It did not feel like his team was prepared for the type of challenge that the Boston Celtics are going to bring. This is like the most team that you have to switch against in the entire NBA with just the way that they play. You even mentioned the fact that you might want to start with Nick Richards on Drew Holiday, considering the fact that they're going to try to cross match and get so many different switches and get you off of your rhythm defensively. But again, that's why I think that having Oso Ighodaro out there would have helped. And obviously Ryan Dunn starting, only played 22 minutes tonight. Part of that being, of course, the fact that the Celtics blew them out. But what I don't understand, Steven, is why they all went under those damn screens.
And that is, again, why I spoke to lack of game plan or lack of execution of a game plan. I feel like there's probably a middle ground there. They just got done doing all of this switching over the last week and a half, almost 2 weeks. And to start the game, we didn't see them leaning into that in the ways in which I felt like they needed to, just to start to give themselves advantages to where if you're not taking away the three-point attempts that the Celtics are ultimately generating, can you at least get them to where they're taking a lot of those three-point attempts late in the shot clock, to where you're getting pressure from, okay, we made 6-7 passes, they've switched everything, and now we don't have enough time to go one-on-one in isolation. It's going to be a driving kick, or someone's just going to have to get it off a +1 pass, and they're going to have to shoot a grenade. Like, how many of those scenarios were the Suns able to force the Celtics into today? It wasn't many. You can count on one finger about how many times they were able to make them do that in the first half in particular.
And that's why I'm saying, like, you know, there's no shame in losing to the Celtics, but there is shame in losing this way, right? If you played good defense, if you were switching, you were contesting, you were forcing them into tough shots, you know, and you were scoring on the other end, and then Boston at the end of the day was just better. Then they're just better. Like, nobody came into this game thinking that if we're talking about tiers of the NBA, that Boston's here and Phoenix is right here, right on them. No, we knew that there was levels. Like, there's a Celtics fan in here talking about there's levels to this. Like, we know that. We think the Suns have been playing better, but nobody thought they were anywhere near the reigning champions level. But you didn't even make it difficult on them. You didn't make it hard. You didn't do the things that you needed to do to even give yourself a chance. Because even if you did everything right, Steven, that didn't guarantee that you would beat this Joe Mazzulla coach team that's full of psychopaths and killers and mismatches, right? Like Kristaps Porzingis with 30 points tonight. Like, that's a killer against a team like Phoenix.
Yep. That's why they're such a tough team. They have minimal flaws in roster construct, the way the pieces fit around one another, the style of play that they play to, the head coach that's pulling those strings, the temperature check he has for the players in his rotation. That is a great team, top to bottom and everywhere in between, including the sidelines. The margin for error is non-existent against those teams. And again, if you can't come out and be sharp to start a game, where else amongst the rest of the rotations that you go through are you going to be able to find a spark? Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how you find yourself in the situation you did today.
Well, and you also find yourself in the situation because, quite frankly, I mean, Devin Booker just didn't play good enough. Today.
Yeah, that's another thing.
And it's been a streak for him against some of these better teams that he doesn't have the greatest games. And he's had some good ones passing-wise recently, and we talked about those numbers on our live show at 3 p.m. yesterday. But you basically were in this game when Kevin Durant was playing, and then in the second quarter, Kevin Durant went to the bench, and you fell out of it a little bit. And then by the time KD came back in, Boston had found their rhythm, like, for real, which is scary because they hit 10 threes in the first quarter, and you still saw them take it up another notch in the second quarter, right? So when KD comes back in, Boston has all the confidence in the world. Boston goes on this crazy run, and at that point, I tweeted out there, I'm like, the Suns need to punch back right now or else it's over. Because if you don't inch back into it and you balloon this lead up to 15, 20 points before halftime, again, this team is too well coached and too set in their ways and disciplined to let that get to them and to take their foot off the gas. And it happens sometimes in the NBA. I think it's happened to Boston a couple times this year where teams have come back. But when people play the Phoenix Suns, they want to put them in the ground because this isn't like your Charlottes, your Washingtons, your Utahs, right? Or even like your Sacramentos, you know, where you sleep on them because they're not really supposed to be that good, right? This team's supposed to be damn good. And going into tonight, the Suns had won 4 straight, beating the Cavs, who are one of the few teams with a better record than the Celtics, and the Bucks, who are a good team, but they were missing Dame. And on top of all of this, Steven, Boston didn't have Jason Tatum tonight either. And that's a huge difference maker for them.
Yeah, that's a gigantic difference maker for them. That's a borderline MVP caliber player if it wasn't for players like Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander this season. But to the Suns part of things, my question is, how are they going to come out in Friday's game? I know we're here to talk about
a good question.
tonight's game, yes, but you cannot afford or allow yourself to have the issues from today's game go into next game. And then you off to 8-25, or you're down 8-25 with 6 minutes left in the first quarter, or something even close to along the lines of that.
You can't afford that. So what do the Suns need to do in order to come out on Friday? Can they learn any lessons from getting schooled by the Boston Celtics? We appreciate everybody coming in here. We're going to answer those questions after our first break. Our like goal is 125, and let's keep it rolling right after this. Good news is it's still truck month. The bad news is that truck month is almost over at Sanderson Ford. That is a mouthful, but it's very easy to tell you that Arizona's largest Ford dealership and the most awarded in America for complete customer satisfaction wants you to be an even happier customer by saving you money on entire lineup of Mavericks, Rangers, F-150s, Super Duties, Broncos, Bronco Sports, thousands of them marked down over at Truck Month at Sanderson Ford. But the best part is Sanderson Ford doesn't just want to tell you about their prices. They don't want you just to know that you can get a vehicle for a good price in Truck Month. They want you to know that you can trust them, because you can. Family owned and operated through 3 generations. They pride themselves on their mantra, which is no hassle, no pressure, no nonsense. They genuinely care about you. Steven's been in the building there, and it's like, damn, like, are you my family? Like they're genuinely invested in making sure that you're in the right vehicle at the right price at the right time. And of course, all offers on truck month end at the end of the month on the 31st. So get in there while you can. Just a couple of days left over at truck month for Sanderson Ford. I want you to write down this number right now, whether you have sold your home or looking to sell your home, eventually want to own a home, or you don't know anything about real estate yet. You need to write down 480-776-5231. And you ask yourself this question: why, Eric? Maybe I'm a young person who doesn't own a house, isn't planning on owning a house anytime soon. Well, Carol Royse wants to sit down with you and talk to you about what you need to do to change that. Because Carol is here for you. Not to make a quick buck, not to put a fancy ad on your television telling you that you're going to sell your home in a certain amount of time. No, Carol will make you guarantees and promises like your home sold for market value, or she'll pay you the difference. Or when you buy a home, if you don't love it, she'll buy it back from you within 18 months of you purchasing it. But the reality is Carol wants to know about you and wants to put together a financial plan to make sure that you're successful and that you don't make the wrong decision in a very, very difficult world where a lot of people are trying to take advantage of you. So one more time, write down this number, 480-776-5231, or visit Carol online at carolroyseteam.com and tell them PHNX sent you. That's carolroyseteam.com. Terms and conditions do apply.
I'll say also, Miss Carol is one of the more convincing speakers that I've been around, at least in recent memory. She speaks with a certain type of
Conviction,
yes.
because she knows what she's doing.
Yes.
The first thing she said was, how many of you own a home?
Mm-hmm.
Some of us raised our hand. Not me.
Not me either.
And she went, the rest of you are screwed. But then she's like,
that was the first thing she said.
That's the first thing.
This was before high. Like, she came in and she was very much, obviously respectful, but very much straight to business to communicate the urgency.
Yeah, because she wants you to be in a good spot.
For sure.
And so, listen, honestly, I'd rather talk about Carol Royse than this team.
We could spend the rest of the time.
We do need to talk about the Phoenix Suns. Steven, we do have to give out a big, bright, shining star. Mm-hmm. So let's just go ahead and do that. Of course, presented by Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Is at playedgila.com for more details.
I am a big, bright, shining star.
It's Kevin Durant again.
No middle name today because we lost.
No middle name today because they lost, but 20 points at halftime. Again, continues to knock down and take the three-point opportunities that are presented to him. A lot of them by way of passes that come from the gravity and the tension that Devin Booker gets and the way that he has to be guarded and accounted for. When KD space to the backside or weak side of actions where Durant or Booker has the ball, oftentimes finds himself open. And he's never met even a look at the basket that he has not liked, whether he's got a live dribble or he's shooting it off the catch. KD's an all-time great. He was the best scorer through the first half of this game, even in a game where the Celtics knocked down, I don't know how many threes in the first half. KD just continues to get it done. But and I hate to take the spotlight away from him because this is his segment, but that's why the Suns defense has to be at a certain level, because his scoring impact, especially with the way in which he operates from the mid-range, is one of the best of all time. The best of all time, in my honest opinion. You can't have that impact, especially in meaningful moments of a game, if you're down double digits. And especially if you're talking about 20 or more.
Well, you also can't have those meaningful moments by yourself, right? And I mentioned Devin Booker earlier, even when people say that we haven't, when we literally did. But you can't waste these types of performances. And I don't want to get like too far down this. Like, listen, man, flush this game. Like, get over it. We'll talk about what they need to do in order to move on Friday. And part of that is you just got to get over yourself. You lost a game to the Boston Celtics. You and 53, 54 other people so far this season. They've lost less than 20 games this season, right? Does that mean that we can't critique them? And that mean that we can't ask Devin Booker to be better when Kevin Durant's dropping 30 on them? Mm-hmm. No, we absolutely could ask that. Do the Suns need Devin Booker to bounce back against the Timberwolves to pull off a win against another good team who is in the play-in still? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But this is not like the death sentence for the Phoenix Suns. They have a hard schedule, and they dug themselves a hole. But if I told you that Cleveland, Milwaukee, Boston, you're taking 2 of 3, if I told you before this happened, everybody in here would have signed up for it. So don't, jump off a bridge because the Phoenix Suns lost to the Boston Celtics. It sucks. I hated it. It wasn't fun to watch. We were naming 2K players in the third quarter. The third quarter.
The whole second half.
Mind you. But there is more to this. So let's talk about what goes on next. Steven, from a mental standpoint, besides just flushing it, how do you as a basketball player and as a basketball team go from this loss, internalize it, and turn it into something positive by Friday?
I think looking at the offensive side first, you have to look at the movement of the basketball. Look at how slow developing. We talked about it during the live stream. Where's the tempo to their offense that was extremely successful for them in the early part of the regular season, where they were operating as a top 5, top 3 offense in the league? Getting across the half-court line with 23, 22 seconds left, to where a defense now has to guard you for that long. And with the advantages that you can create, you're able to move it from the second side to the third side to the fourth side sometimes. That means the defense is rotating time and time again, especially when players like Devin Booker and Kevin Durant have it either in the post, in isolation, or in pick and roll.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of rotating that you have to make. Now take that template from one possession and add it to a 48-minute game if a defense has to defend to that level. Even the Celtics are going to wither if they have to defend to that level for the rest of a game. Even the Thunder will. It's hard to get them in rotation, but one of the best ways to do that is if you don't allow for the shot clock to work against you so often. How many times in the first half did we see them taking shots with 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds on the clock?
Yeah, a lot.
That's not a recipe for success.
Too many times.
This offense,
They're too slow.
You have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant on your team. There's no reason why, unless you're going against a team like this and it happens to be in crunch time where you're going mismatch hunting and things like that, that you should be taking those type of shots. That's just unacceptable for a team with this much offensive firepower to be playing that slow. In addition to that, though, which leads to the defensive end, you can't play to the tempo that you desire to and play that free-flowing, random style of basketball that you desire if you're always taking the ball out the net. And you cannot afford to have a tone or lack thereof set because of a lack of game plan discipline to the defensive end.
You know what I do if I'm Mike Budenholzer? Quit. The second thing that I do if I'm Mike Budenholzer is I'm taking film from the Cavs game and I'm taking film from the Celtics game. And I'm showing them in like rapid succession. This is what we did against Cleveland. This is what we did against Boston. Do you see the difference in the effort? Do you see the difference in the closeouts? Do you see the difference in the sense of urgency? Remind these guys, because I do feel like this team gets in its own head. I feel like when this team goes down, they get very down. When they go up, they get very up, right? So I want to remind them that you can compete with the best of the best by giving these extra efforts, right? And then showing them what happens when they don't. And reminding them that, yes, you're playing the Boston Celtics, and whoever you're going to need to play in the West to at least get into the play-in, if you're in there, is not going to be the Boston Celtics, right? You have a tough schedule going forward. You're playing Boston another time. Other than that, you're not playing the Boston Celtics again, right? Like, you have proven that you could beat Milwaukee. You proved that you could beat Cleveland in convincing fashion. You have a chance to go out there and prove that this was just a one-game flush-it scenario. And this team desperately needs to prove that, because the last thing that you can afford to do is come out on Friday and play with the same lackluster energy on closeouts, right? Let a team in Minnesota who's had your number since you had their number last regular season before they spanked you in the playoffs. You can't let them walk all over you, because then you're just reminding everybody who you have been and disregarding who you were over that 4-game stretch.
Yeah, and to that point, Friday is a gotta have it.
Without a doubt.
Yes, you lost to the Celtics. Yes, you won the 2 games prior against formidable opponents. Flush all of that out. Look at that game as its individual self. You have to go get that. For confidence reasons, specific to the thorn in the side that the Timberwolves have been, for yourself to prove that, to your point, tonight's game, within this 6-game sample size that we're looking at this team through that lens, to prove that tonight's game was an anomaly in that group of games, and to prove that you are a team that's still taking those steps towards the team that they need to be to get through the play-in and actually make the playoffs.
I agree. Cedric with a $5 super chat says, this game showed what the best this defense can be. With tough competition ahead, what is the goal for this team when you're not a contender? Face up D. I mean, you're not a contender, but you still have to give it your bet. You can't be getting blown out like this on a nightly basis.
And this, for me, again, it continues to be the lack of execution, the game plan, and the lack of process on offense. Those are two things non-negotiable that should not be an issue for this team.
Agreed. Arizona 88 with another super chat. 499 says, I mean, it's obvious why we lost to the Celtics. They have Kristaps Porzingis, who's 7'1", and who scored 30 points. We put Nick in, who's 6'11", SMH bro out in Bull, who's 7'3". Put in Bull, who's 7'3". You feel like this could have been a game where they got into Bull earlier?
Mm-mm.
Boston's the type of team that would expose Bull, but from a pure size perspective, I understand why somebody would at least want to see it.
But you wouldn't go to Bull before Oso Iguodala.
No, and I would have gone to Oso Iguodala much quicker, so maybe I would have gotten to the Bull part of it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
This one's for you, Noah. Be calm, see clearly.
Be calm, $2 super chat. Sometimes and last in love, but sometimes it hurts. Sad face.
Yeah,
It's tough.
that is tough. You know, this is going to be tough. Looking at what's in the box.
Yeah, I was hoping you didn't say that.
I mean, it was too
You
perfect
threw
of
that
a
off the
transition.
backboard. Yeah, I was
Presented
off the
by
backboard.
Desert Financial Credit Union, Arizona's #1 credit union, named by Forbes.
What's in the box?
All right, y'all can close y'all eyes and just listen. I would
Pain
suggest
is in the
that
box.
because there's a lot of green and it's heavy in favor of the Boston Celtics. Start from the bottom, work up to the top. One of the keys to the game was rebounding the basketball. The stops that you were able to compile, are you keeping the Boston Celtics to 1 attempt per possession? The answer to that was no, especially early on. And just generally speaking, over the course of the game, you see that the Celtics were plus 10 on the boards. Look at another fatal flaw of the Suns. Turnovers weren't necessarily an issue per se in this one, but when you're conceding to an opponent shots on goal because you can't play a activity-causing defense that can force turnovers, meaning that they're getting shots on goal with every single possession, if they're getting that in addition to turnover points, even if your turnovers aren't loud, but you're conceding 16 turnover points, there is no margin for error to come back from that unless you're knocking down 25 to 33 points, 3-pointers in the game. To which, right above that,
Steven.
13 for 41 from deep, 31.7%. One of the keys to the game was to neutralize the three-point line, meaning make your threes and take away some of the ones that they take. They did not do that. 22 for 52 for the Boston Celtics, 42.3%. And lastly, look at the attempts and the field goal percentage at the top. Again, margin for error from the numbers at the bottom relative to the numbers at the top. That's how they got to where they were in this game.
Dude, they shot 50, 40, 90
Mm-hmm.
as a team
Mm-hmm.
on 89 attempts, 52 attempts from deep, and 22 shots at the line. They shot 50, 40, 90.
Yep.
That
and that,
is
mind you,
pathetic.
and those numbers are including garbage time, which
Yeah.
is about 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So that means that the reserves came in and they didn't lose
God,
any of that efficiency. So
what
imagine
were they
what that
shooting,
was.
like
Exactly.
10 minutes left to go in the game.
Exactly.
That's really when the game was fully over.
Exactly. So,
50, 40, 90 is it?
and again, talking about process, the Suns only had 22 assists in this game. That number is not one that was up there. In addition to that,
Stop with the numbers, man.
yeah,
Stop.
in addition to that, one of the biggest identifying marker numbers for the Suns this season, in addition to the assists, one that I always speak that goes in tandem with the assists, that's the three-point attempts. They said that they want to be a team that gets up 40-plus threes a game.
Mhm.
We saw the number that they came up with in this game, 41, I think. 41 is okay, but that's not enough when you're going against a team like the Boston Celtics. They got up 52.
Yeah, it comes down to attempts, man. Like
The
you
math is not mathing at that point.
you also got outscored in the paint, like 44 to 36.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't lead once in this game.
Nope.
That's the biggest number for me. 34, largest lead for the Celtics.
Mhm.
0.
And again, all
For
of
the
those
Suns.
numbers are relative to the start. If you don't allow for them to set that type of loud tone where they're getting multiple attempts on goal in one possession and knocking down threes, all of their starters knocking down threes in the first quarter, in the first 6 minutes. If you don't allow for them to set that tone, the whole flow of the game shifts to a way that's a lot more manageable, to where your shot making from Kevin Durant and potentially Devin Booker can have the impact that it needs over the course of the game. But when you don't give yourself that chance from the onset and you're playing catch up literally the rest of the way, defensively rotating the whole game, offensively trying to find some semblance of a flow, that's how you find yourself down 30 at the end of a game against the Boston Celtics.
Cedric with a $5 super chat. Thanks again, Cedric, for the super chats. Thanks all of you for being here on a depressing Wednesday night. Says, if you can shoot threes and make them, you can beat the Phoenix Suns. I really hope that this narrative is changed towards the end of the season.
Well, I mean, you can
You and me
extrapolate that from the Suns and apply that to anybody.
Yeah, but it's like extra with this because the Suns allow you to do it so easily.
My issue with it, and I'll push back some, that was going to be an issue for the Suns this season. We knew that coming in. The way for them to neutralize that was by also putting pressure on opponents the same way that they concede pressure to themselves on the defensive end by shooting and making threes. In pregame, we talked about the Suns being the most efficient and most effective three-point shooting team off the catch in the league, and the Celtics being third behind the Chicago Bulls. Mm-hmm. That impact was not there tonight. So there's no other way for them to make up for that if the defense is not at the level that it needs to be at.
Well, and they also need to make up for it because, like you said, like roster construction-wise, yeah, like, of course, this team was not meant to be a perimeter defensive stalwart team. This is not Oklahoma City, right? You have Ryan Dunn, but even coming into the season, you didn't know how much Ryan Dunn was going to be in the rotation. So your best perimeter defenders were Royce O'Neal, Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen.
Kevin Durant.
I mean, Kevin Durant, yeah, but Kevin Durant can't be your POA guy because he's your best rim protector as well, right?
And he's also your best help defender.
Yeah, and
exactly. Now you've identified the problem.
Yeah. Well, right, and but the problem is there. But like, there are people in life who aren't as there's something they're not as good at, right? Mm-hmm. But they make up for it because they work really damn hard, right? Like maybe there's a running back that's not the fastest, but damn, they're tough. So they stick around in the league for a couple extra years because you just can't bring them down because they work harder than you. They lift more weights than you, even though they're not as naturally gifted, right? Or like, even like Steph Curry, who's obviously very naturally gifted, but he works so hard to shoot three, whatever, right? Like you have certain deficits in athletics or, in real life. And the type of people who overcome those weaknesses, because we all have them, are the types that identify what they need to work hard at least neutralize it. Because you can never fully take away these things, but you can soften their impact and soften their blow. And that's where the problem with the Phoenix Suns is they have a problem that they can't fix by just snapping their fingers and getting better athletically, with length and just better overall point of attack defenders. But there's also the effort question in there as well. And they were doing so good at that recently. And tonight was just a tough one. We all know it's a tough one. We're going to keep talking about a tough one. We have sound from Mike Budenholzer and so much more right after our second break. I haven't had to say this about a Pure Edibles read in a while, but maybe you want to forget this game. Maybe you wanted to watch this game in a better state. Well, Pure Edibles could have helped you with that. And the best thing is, whether you're trying to sleep, be uplifted, relax, unwind, whatever the difference is, it's all clearly labeled on Pure Edibles tins and cans. I'm preaching this message as somebody who's made this mistake, and a lot of people have made this mistake when it comes to edibles. You want to know how it's going to make you feel, and it's very important to get the right dose. And the best part about Pure Edibles is they tell you exactly what the effect is going to make you feel, and they're easily ripped in half or bit in half so you can dial in your exact dose. Make sure you start low and work your way up, and you can do it with all their delicious candy, gummies, Kicks, which is their version of Starburst, chews, hard candy, soft candy, so much more over at Pure Edibles, a local product. So go find yourself some of it over at the 130 dispensaries across the great state of Arizona. And of course, psychos and sickos know that Noah's nickname is Stinky Feet. And the best part about Noah having stinky feet is now there is a solution for his stinky feet. And that, of course, is with Mando. I'm sorry, this was a lot easier to pull off when the vibes were high against the Bucks, but low vibes today. I'm sorry, Noah. But I'm not sorry to recommend Mando to you, because not only can you put it on your stinky feet, you can put it on your pits, balls, thigh folds, belly buttons, butt cracks, and more. Plus, right now, new customers, which hopefully Noah is no longer a new customer, comes with solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of Noah's choice and free shipping. Special offer for listeners: you can get up to $5 off your starter pack with our exclusive code. That is up to 40% off your starter pack. Use code PHNX at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them that Noah sent you. Stay fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Okay, I'll say something. Noah doesn't stink. Okay, I'll be the first to say I've never thought that Noah stinks. Can you confirm?
I mean, I don't usually go around sniffing.
Yeah,
in
I
the
don't go
office,
sniffing either.
so I couldn't
But he doesn't
confirm or
like.
deny. But there's
We
nothing
don't smell
that's
from over
ever
here.
there's nothing that's ever caught my attention.
Listen, something I've learned over my life is sometimes you don't need to go sniffing to find out.
That's a bar though.
I mean, it's
That's
true.
a bar though.
It's true. Sniff around and find out if you are feeling so frosty. Let's go from Noah stinky feet to maybe some stinky coaching decisions. This is Coach Budenholzer on going with Nick Richards for as long as he did instead of tapping in with Oso Ighodaro earlier.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're going to probably stick with Nick and Oso and play those two bigs for the 48 minutes. And, in some ways it's a good test or a good opportunity for Nick to get better scrambling and finding shooters. The way the league is built now, there's going to be nights where, Nick is going to have to find three-point shooters. Nick's going to have to get rotations. And I think he got better as the game went. And then also that's obviously maybe more his strength, and so trying to find the balance of when those guys should both be on the court or get their rotations, is always we're trying to look at it and have the best out there.
This guy. Listen, I've always said this, Steven, and correct me if you haven't heard me say this every show. The best time to put your players in learning situations is when you're playing the reigning NBA champions who take advantage of people's mistakes, right? We all know that's the great coaching decision, right? Oh, this guy, he's really struggling at this. Let's put him in a learning situation against the Boston Celtics. Anyway, what were your thoughts on that? Amen, brother.
That was tough to hear. That's a choice.
Yeah.
It's not the right choice. I think that's the most obvious thing, but it's understanding why more than just anybody pointing out that's not the right thing. Okay, then what is the right thing, or what is something that's a step towards that? For me, it's something that I've kind of been speaking to all season long. Kind of mentioned it a little bit with Drew Holiday in pregame, with Nick Richards, with centers that are not the most fleet of foot, but you still want their size out there to set screens on offense, help to clean things up on the glass for you. You can put them in positions defensively where they don't have to make those rotations. Mm-hmm. Because think about it. If you're the Boston Celtics, you get in the first quarter, your very first possession, you see you have their entire defense rotating, closeout after closeout after closeout, because everybody's behind schedule because they have to help for someone not being able to cover the ball. And you see that they also have their center, Nick Richards, that's trying to close out on players like Jaylen Brown. What are you going to be thinking as a Boston Celtics player in the starting lineup?
Lunch.
Everything is on the menu.
Yeah.
Everything.
We're eating good tonight, boys.
Exactly.
Well, and also, not even just in the game, right? But if you don't think that a Joe Mazzulla-led team knows that there's a weakness in a player like Nick Richards, and you go to yourself, like, if Mike Budenholzer knows that that's a weakness of Nick and that's something that he needs to work on, do you want to know who else knows? The damn team who can exploit it. And as soon as they start exploiting it, you should probably take a second and go, we have a player that cannot be exploited as much in theory, right? In theory with Oso Ighodaro. Maybe we try that. No, let's let Nick learn as we're fighting for the 10th seed, and this is a team that literally you can't make a mistake again. Let's just let the guy figure it out.
And that's my
so stupid.
That's my thing with that decision, because that's not a strength of Nick's. We know he's not the best defender in space. We know he's not the most fleet of foot. We know he's not the best at having to change directions defensively in terms of his athleticism. He is not a negative athlete in any capacity, but moving in space is not a strong suit of his. That's not new. Nothing new under the sun with that. You have to be able to protect your players as much as you also want to get as much versatility out them as you possibly can. Being able to put him in situations where he doesn't have to make those rotations, but also playing the players in a more balanced way that are going to help you keep from being in those rotations to begin with. All of that is very relevant. And I don't think we saw those protections in particular in place. I know there are constraints, and I know there are things that demands that come from against a team when you're going against someone that's playing 5-out offense, but you didn't have the protections or the game plan to counter that at all.
And sticking with questioning Mike Budenholzer's decision-making, a lot of eyes are on Kevin Durant's rotation the minutes that he did or did not play in the second quarter. This is what KD had to say for sitting out that extended period of time as the Celtics went on a run.
I'm curious from a player's perspective, when you have it going like you did in the first quarter, how do you, I mean, would you rather stay in there to kind of ride the momentum, or are you more like trying to stay with your normal rotations? I know it's not your decision, but like, would you prefer to kind of ride that hot streak? Or
I mean, I prefer to play 48 minutes every night, but I know how realistic that is. So I feel like I'm always simmering hot, though. Regardless, I might be 0 for 10. And you've seen games this year, start off 1 for 9, I end up finishing games shooting well because I feel like I'm always hot. I mean, maybe that's a little bit of overconfidence in myself or delusion, but that's how I feel when I'm out there, is that, regardless if I'm hot or not or how many minutes I play, I always can get it cooking. So I try not to focus too much on that and just follow the game plan as much as possible.
You would still, like, obviously, not breaking news to anybody, Kevin Durant would love to be on the court for every second possible.
He'd play multiple games a day if he could.
He definitely would. But to that point, though, you don't want it to be that dependent on KD being on the court for your team to be able to stay afloat. It's not why you have 2 superstars on your roster. It's not why you have 3 max contract players on your roster either. And that kind of leads to the point that I was kind of trying to make with the Bradley Beal situation. You don't want to be over-reliant and over-dependent on usage or minutes demand for either one of those top 2 players on your roster to have to pull literally all of the strings for your team to stay afloat. That's why you have a big 3 construct. That's the intrigue. That's the attractiveness of that construct of a roster.
Yeah, and I know that you don't want to play Kevin Durant 48 minutes a night, and I get it, but there's no margin for error against this team. And I do think that you need to let him ride that hot hand a little bit more, and then you can maybe sit him once you've stabilized, because you were playing from behind immediately, and he was helping you get back into it. And he's been your only consistent offensive player, especially against some of these better teams this year, with Devin Booker struggles against them. So, you don't want to play him too much, but you also put yourself in a position where you kind of have to. And if you're going to play him a lot, you have to play him a lot against the Boston Celtics. This is not a normal team. This is not the Milwaukee Bucks, right? This is not the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is not the Clippers. This is not the Houston Rockets, right? This isn't even like the Denver Nuggets, okay? Which, those are good teams. But this is the Boston Celtics, where if you're not giving them the ball and matching them tit for tat every single possession, you're done. You're put in the ground. It's over. So you have to recognize that as a coach. And I know I'm asking a lot from somebody who has proven to us that he just doesn't get it like that, but I'm still going to say it. You as a coach need to be able to make those reads in those situations. Speaking of reads, let's read this super chat from Hoosman, a nice $20 one. Take it away, Steven.
Yes, sir. $20 super chat from Hoosman. We appreciate you. Boston's lights out for offense. That said, Suns bench did not shoot well. Rooks looked like they were nervous to shoot at times, which turned into KD save us moments, which we talked about. And in the last sentence here, speaking to how do the Suns go into the next game mentally prepare for the Wolves?
Well, we will have some sound on that here in a second from Mike Budenholzer and from Kevin Durant, and we spoke on it a little bit. But I do think that you have to remind yourself about the heights that you can hit. And go watch the Ryan Dunn poster on Giannis, right? Go watch Oso Iguodala's minutes against Cleveland, right? Like, look at Kevin Durant being Western Conference Player of the Week, or Devin Booker upping it to like 10 assists per game. The recipe's there, and we talked about it over and over again. It's why it was so exciting, because it was a sustainable recipe for how to succeed. But sometimes, man, like, you can bake the perfect pie, but when you run into an oven that's baking it at 550 degrees like the Boston Celtics, it doesn't matter how you bake it. You're going to get burnt. So you got to just understand that you have to set your expectations realistically.
Yeah. That's it.
Well, that's what I have to say.
The big part also that they mentioned was the bench points.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bench points, too. I mean, we said that all the role players and the stars have to step up, and they'll still need to, because that's why they won.
You don't beat Boston single-handedly.
No.
It is very much all hands on deck. That includes sharpness from the sideline, from your head coach and the rest of the coaching staff. Obviously, execution of game plan in addition to all of that.
Yeah. We do have Coach Bud and Kevin Durant, we're going to play these back-to-back for you on how the Suns respond after building momentum these last few weeks defensively and then getting punched in the mouth tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're, I think we should be able to fall back a little bit on, the progress we've been making. Tonight we got punched. Boston was very good. They executed. They shot well. We've got to, find a way to kind of make that less, be better, get ready. Tomorrow will be a travel day, and the great thing about the NBA is we got a chance to go defend on Friday. We got to be better defensively Friday.
Yeah, get ready for the next one. We got a big conference game against Minnesota, a team that we've been struggling against, and we want to look to get a win against. So move on.
That's tough on the Bud part to talk about getting punched and not having that punch back that neutralizes things. They showed that they were able to kind of erase some of the deficit they were at in that second quarter, but they weren't able to sustain because it got back to where it was in the beginning before halftime. Those last 6 minutes, we talked about closing quarters and closing halves. They got to a comfortable point where they were within 2 possessions or 1 possession in the early second quarter, and then all of a sudden that evaporated, and then that was GG's the rest of the way. You have to avoid being at such significant deficit so early in games. Like that part of your process just can't happen.
Well, and I mean KD's thing too, like, hey, flush it, go to the next game. It's the only thing that you could do with the game like this.
Yeah.
Take it in, internalize it, flush it, get better from it, and go move on. And speaking of moving on, we are going to move on. We're going to take a break. Gerald will be calling in here in a minute. We'll take a look at the playoff standings. We'll tell you about our watch party that we have going on this Friday and so much more. Commercial free right after our final break. Did you hit your bet tonight?
Yeah, no.
Oh, you had me going there for a second. Not a great night on Bet365 for the boys, but maybe you could have a better night. And if you haven't signed up for Bet365, well, join us and the 90 million users they have worldwide. Such an easy app to use, always having great lines, always very easy to use as well, which is not the case for a lot of other places. Plus, they have great offers, not just with the NBA specifically, with the NHL, MLB starting up, of course, NFL. You can bet a lot on that in season. But right now, from Bet365, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use code PHNX365, deposit 10, place 5, and get $150 back in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 plus and physically located in AZ. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 52342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Steven, sometimes it's hard to handle your money in today's day and age.
Yeah. Everybody wants your subscription money.
Well, everybody wants your subscription money, and sometimes you don't really know where your money is going, and that's why Monarch Money, well, it's the best place for you to start managing your finances, whether you're a young person who's trying to get their life together, trying to start saving, trying to start building a little bit of a portfolio, or maybe you're a little bit later in life, and you're trying to think to yourself, why do I not have the same amount of money to fall back on? And maybe some of my friends, and we work similar jobs, and we make the similar amounts of money. Well, Monarch Money is the best place for you to put your spending, savings, investments, all effortlessly in one place to make your biggest life goals a reality. It's a finance tool that people actually love, and more importantly, it's a finance tool that people actually use. Named the Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app for 2025, it's the top recommended personal finance app by users and experts with over 30,000 5-star reviews. Get control over your finances with Monarch Money. Use code PHNX at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code PHNX. Thanks to everybody hanging out with us in the chat. Steven, can we just name dudes again? John Salmons. Come on.
John
Salmon.
Crazy.
I'm hungry. Dude, I'm hungry.
Yeah, clearly.
My voice is going. I've done like 16 shows today. I've been on air for like 15 hours. You know, I'm a hungry guy.
Randy Foy.
Randy Foy.
That's probably my second favorite name from
Randy
earlier.
Foy was a great one. I mean, J.R. Smith in 2K.
Yeah.
God. Electric City.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do we have to go back to the game now?
Yeah.
We have to do it. Should we just look at the push for the playoffs presented by All Pro Shade Concepts. Love All Pro Shade Concepts. Don't love what happened tonight. Luckily, the Suns still holding on to that 10th seed, but barely. They are tied with the Dallas Mavericks. And for those wondering, Portland, 3 games behind in that 12 seed. The Suns now half a game behind Sacramento, who they were tied with going into tonight's game. They now fall behind by half a game. Sacramento is up. And then Minnesota is now a full 6 games ahead of the Suns, so you can gain a game on them by winning on Friday. But the win is more for your standings in 11, 10, and 9 than it is 7 and 8. And Golden State is even a half game above that. Then it goes Clippers, Grizzlies, Lakers, Nuggets, Rockets, Thunder. It just feels like if the Suns are able to pull this off, if the Suns are able to make the play in, and they're able to win the play in, and they're able to get the 8th seed, they just feel like they're on a date with Oklahoma City.
I got a question for you.
Please, I
pertaining to
hopefully
this
have an
game.
answer.
Something that might make you think a little bit.
No, think.
So looking at looking at the
those are 2 things I don't
play-in-
like to do. Think about this game and then just think.
Anyway, looking
sorry.
at the play-in realm of teams, right now is Golden State 7, Minnesota 8, Sacramento 9, Suns 10.
Yeah.
The Suns have to win 2 games to get into the actual playoffs.
Yeah.
Who of those teams? Well, first of all, I guess it's a 2-part question. Who do you have winning between the Golden State Warriors and the Minnesota Timberwolves in this present play-in construct?
I would take Golden State to win, personally. I'm praying that Golden State or Minnesota ends up out of the play-in, and somehow the Suns end up playing the Clippers, who are tied with Golden State right now but have the tiebreaker. That's what I'm praying for, because I think Golden State and Minnesota are bad matchups on both sides for the Suns.
Do you believe in the Suns beating the Clippers in a one-off scenario?
More so than the Timberwolves and the Warriors, yes. I'm not confident in any of them. I'm not comfortable in any of them, Steven. Can I play the Kings twice?
Okay.
That's what I want to do.
All right. Just asking because, like, I know we've talked about playoffs and all of that, but how realistic is it that the Suns can actually even get to that point? Like, yes, we think they can beat the Sacramento Kings, even though Sacramento has a couple of players in an archetype that the Suns have struggled against in this season, that if someone knocks down 5 threes, Jake LaRavia knocks down 5 threes, that's not on the menu for your process to win a game against them. You know? So nothing, my point in bringing it up is nothing's guaranteed regardless of who they're going up against.
Sure.
And that's why I keep harping on them just playing a specific few types of ways that's shown to win games for them. When the defense is at a certain level, the defense literally only has to defend to a top 15 level for their offense to have the impact that it needs for their winning percentage to align with the team that's better than most of the teams in the playing realm. Statistically, that's what the numbers say. How often do they reach that 15th or better level of defense? That answer lies directly in their record, which is currently has them stashed in 10th.
It's sad. It's very sad. Yeah, I'm not comfortable even, like, I would want to play the Kings out of all those teams, but I'm not comfortable in any do or die single game situation. I mean, we've seen the Kings beat this team this year.
And on top of all of that, the Suns being the 10th seed, regardless of who they play, that means they're on the road. They're 12 and 24 on the road this season.
Yeah, the road record is really, really bad. Over 500 at home, though. Woohoo! But they did lose tonight. Well, I'm not smiling. We're all not smiling. But something that can put a smile on all of our faces, it's Girth.
In the darkness, beyond the light, there shall only be one. Welcome to
Rain or shine, win or loss, it's still time for From the Home Court, presented by the Carol Royse Team, your home sold guaranteed realty, Arizona's fan favorite real estate team, where Carol will guarantee to sell your home for 100% of the market value, or she's going to pay you the difference. Learn more at carolroyceteam.com. Gerald, the good vibes are gone. Ugh.
It only took one game, huh? They're all gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Celtics, though. How much can you really take away from a game like this?
I think you can take some things away, and I don't mean to downplay. Like, this was a bad game, and it's not just this one game that took the wind out of our sails. It's the other 37 losses that have come before this. So I'm not trying to downplay this because it did kind of feel like, they had some momentum. They won 4 games. They beat a red hot Bulls team that I think has now won like 8 of its last 10. They beat the number 1 team in the East. They beat a playoff caliber team in Milwaukee that still has Giannis. And then against a Jason Tatumless Celtics team, they kind of saw the meaning of identity and playing to that identity. The Celtics didn't have their best player, but because they have so much depth, so many quality players, and a style of basketball that they play every single night, they're one of the best in the league in that regard. This was a good test for the defensive progress that they've made, and they failed it pretty miserably. And I don't think it's just on the players in this case. I do think the rotations did not set them up for success. You guys obviously played the clip earlier in the show where I asked Bud about going with Nick Richards over Oso Ighodaro, and he kind of took more of a long-term approach with his answer in terms of it's a good test. He's going to need to do this, but you're not at a point in the season where you can really afford to be pulling the strings like a puppet master like that with a long-term view. You've got to get wins now. And so it felt like at times Bud was the only person in the building that didn't understand that his most switchable big, his best bet at trying to stop, Porzingis from going off from 3, Al Horford from walking into transition threes unguarded, was sitting on the bench for a good portion of that first half, especially, when it felt like the game was getting away from them. So Oso wasn't great tonight. I don't know that anything was going to stop the avalanche of threes that we saw. But when you start the game doubling on the ball instead of just playing straight up defense against the Celtics team, you're already putting yourself in a tough position where you're going to have to rotate on the backside, and your rotations are going to have to be pristine. When you've got Nick Richards, who is not a very switchable big, trying to partake in that, he's running back on defense and just guarding space, and guys are wide open from 3. You're letting them take practice walk up threes. This is a Celtics team that's going to absolutely bury you, and that's what we saw tonight.
Yeah.
Amen.
Sheesh. Gerald, what was your assessment of just Bud's general response to today's game? Did you feel like he felt like they weren't prepared, or they just didn't execute to the game plan, or like was there a middle ground there? What was your general sense of his response to today's game?
It was the same tried and true, give credit to the opponent. We've got to be better. Their execution was better. The Celtics can do this to you type of thing. I think it's true to some degree. Like, the Celtics are capable of doing this on a given night against quality defenses. I still think the Suns left a lot on the table in terms of his rotations, in terms of his strategies. Like I said, putting 2 on the ball when Jason Tatum is not in the game is a risky strategy in and of itself. That's what Kevin Durant, he called it risky after the game, noting that the rotations have to be very sound, and you're kind of putting yourself in a little bit of a hole when you're sending 2 to the ball against this particular team. And I do think the Suns, the players that were on the court, didn't execute well either. Like, we talked about Nick Richards just kind of wandering around and being lost out there, but he was not the only one by any means. So I think it's disappointing on multiple fronts. I don't think Bud set them up for success. I don't think the players executed well. I'm very eagerly awaiting to see how they respond on Friday, because if they come out with another effort like this, then you can kiss all that momentum, all the good things that we talked about for the last 2 weeks goodbye, because Minnesota has owned them. That was something that Kevin Durant said in postgame. He was saying this is a team that's played really well against us, that we've had trouble with. They're a conference game. Obviously, we know that they're now in 10th in the standings. They had an opportunity to move up tonight with a win. They didn't get it. So big time response, I'm hoping, on Friday.
Gerald, for you and everybody who's also watching us on TV, the party always continues over at gophnx.com, where, of course, you have your wonderful writing up there so consistently, especially after the high vibes that we were writing. What do you think they could take from this game, and how can they apply that on Friday beyond just flush it and move forward?
Oh, yeah, it's tough because the Celtics are such a unique opponent. Minnesota plays pretty differently from Boston, but I do think just the sharpness on defense. I think they've been, like, offensively wasn't even the problem tonight. I know they only scored like 102, but the starters basically didn't play for most of the fourth quarter. I imagine that number would have been higher. I feel like it's all defense for me. It's all the defensive end. It's all how Bud manages and changes his approach based on opponent, and we have not seen a lot of that flexibility throughout the year. We have seen him change things up, but a lot of times it's like I've been saying, kind of pushing the wrong buttons at the wrong time. This felt like, earlier in the year, just a couple of weeks ago, we were saying Nick Richards had a good first half. He should have played more. And it feels hypocritical to come back and say Nick Richards really shouldn't have played as much as he did tonight. But you have to tailor your game plan and your approach based on your opponent. It doesn't feel like he does that. It feels like he's very much the double down into what we're doing type. And at this point in the season, where every game, they talk about how it has a playoff feel, it needs to have a playoff feel in its approach too, in your scouting and how you approach it, because you can't afford to just lose a game here and there. This was a game where the Celtics played really well. You probably weren't going to win anyway if Oso started the second half, but it's just those pockets where the game really gets away, and we hadn't seen them spiral like that in a while. So I do hope if Minnesota comes out and hits them with a similar punch in the jaw on Friday, they're going to be able to respond to it a lot better than they did tonight.
Gerald, I disagree, because Mike Budenholzer is treating this like a playoff series. He's not making any adjustments whatsoever. We are great decision makers over here. We decided to do a watch along for this game, and it quickly devolved in the second half to we are just naming dudes, right? So we are just naming the most underrated 2K players of all time, right? Like the J.R. Smiths, like Randy Foye, talking about Ball is Life mixtapes, and just Trey Jefferson, Akil Carr. Is there a random dude that's on your mind that just sticks in Gerald Bourguet's brain? Can we get a little palate cleanser here?
There is, absolutely. I'll be honest with you. I have not been much of a 2K guy. There's too many microtransactions in that game now.
Oh, for sure.
Back in the day, in the NBA Live days when that was still a thing, Darko Milicic was a walking bucket in that game. He was unstoppable. I played my friend who picked the Pistons, and Milicic dropped like 50 on me, and he shot like 17 for 20. It was ridiculous. That game thought Darko Milicic was the next coming of Michael Jordan, just like the Detroit Pistons did. But absolutely walking bucket. Really, really a pity that he was not as good as his video game counterpart, because that dude was unreal.
There's nothing that can heal a soul better than talking about something like look at the smiling on our faces. Like, this game sucked, and we're all smiling. Okay, it was 132 to 102. And we're just sitting here laughing.
Three of us, four at least.
Yeah, Noah's dead serious. Noah never smiles. But Gerald, we appreciate you. Of course, you can follow Gerald on socials at Gerald Bourguet, and of course, you can catch all of his wonderful work and his wonderful writing, whether it's good as far as the Suns or whether it's bad as far as the Suns. It's always good over at GoPHNX.com. Thanks, Gerald.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so another 40 minutes of naming dudes, or do you want to go home? Those are your two options.
You the host? I'm just
That's going to do it here for PHNX. No, listen, guys, we do have a watch party. We have one super chat we'll read in a second. We have a watch party on Friday, Suns, Timberwolves. Come by to the Gilbert location of Spinato's. Go to gophnx.com/events or go to spinatospizzeria.com to get all the info on that event. There's going to be a pizza basketball contest. I will be emceeing that event. We will be doing giveaways, not just PHNX giveaways, but the Phoenix Suns will be there as well, giving away tickets, merch, all stuff of that. It's going to be very, very fun. Win or loss, come have some delicious pizza. I personally recommend the Red Zone pizza. They got some good wings as well. I had a nice Caesar salad and cannoli during our 24-hour live stream. Ooh, they took care of your boy. Come take care of yourself with us at Spinato's March 28th. We have a pregame and postgame show live from that event, and of course, we'll be hanging out before and during the game as well. We do have a super chat from Cedric, $2, says, please allow us to call in. That'll be fire. Listen, as somebody who comes from radio, I would love nothing more than to be able to take callers. Unfortunately, with our streaming software, the way that it's set up is very unique, and we can only really do like the Gerald call in. We don't have the option to just like give you guys a phone number like a normal radio station would, and that phone number could be used by a bunch of different lines and everything. It's a little, behind the scenes, but Maybe a mailbag. That is kind of what the super chats are for. Maybe we can set up like an audio voice mailbag or something for the summer. But I feel you, Cedric, the inner radio guy in me totally agrees. But I'm sorry, just the way that we are currently set up, I don't think that'll happen, but we can try. But I know for sure that all the psychos and sickos will be back with us on Friday. Tomorrow is a day off for PHNX Suns, but so much going on. In the collegiate world, Koa Pete is announcing his commitment. The thought is he's either going to Arizona or ASU. So if you are a local basketball fan, keep your eye out for that. Of course, also Diamondbacks opening day is tomorrow. PHNX Diamondbacks will have a pregame and a postgame show for you right here on PHNX Sports. Free agency frenzy still going on for PHNX Cardinals. And we have so much more at PHNX Sports. Hit that subscribe button. Nate says, don't give chat the mic. LMAO, that would be a mistake. No, that's what super chats are for. You guys get the mic. We just get to decide whether or not we say it. And 99% of the time, if your name is not BComC clearly, we read every single super chat. Thank you all so much. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button as well. You can follow us on socials at PHNX_Suns. We appreciate Stinky Feet Noah behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. Whether he's stinky or not, he is damn good at his job. Speaking of damn good at his job, that is Stephen Prejean Garner. You can follow him on Twitter at StephenPG3. And you can follow me as well at ERIKRUBY. And remember, this is only the worst loss of the season so far.
We all silly like the mayor.